Well, by my clock, we are adding 4 minutes to our time bank here.
I
So,
know, right? How about that? Like
yeah.
we never start early. This is awesome. So people are probably like just finishing their dinner. Oh no,
Yeah.
Ted and John are on. What's going
Notifications are
on?
going off. Hey, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you. This will be our last podcast of the year.
Last one of the year. That's right. How
That's
about that?
awesome. It's been I think we only missed, I want to say we probably only missed 3 or 4 weeks.
We've been really consistent and we've doubled up on some weeks and we will officially start season three, I think, in our first podcast of 2023.
Yeah.
Somewhere we might actually be season four.
I think we're season 4 because we started in March 2020.
Yeah, because somewhere along the way we went almost a year and a half with I think season two. So one of the seasons, I don't know, I messed up the sequencing of the
It's okay. We're
of
not
the
professional. We're
seasons.
not professional podcasters.
Not at all, not
That's
at
for
all.
sure.
So how about that? I mean, it's been a lot of podcasts. In fact, I was putting together my class for spring 2023, biomechanics of endurance performance, and I just started going back through our list of podcasts, and I said, "Oh, this would be a good one for them to listen to. Oh, this will be a good one to listen to." And so it's really good, talking with you each week and covering a lot of ground in different areas.
It's interesting. If you were to listen to all of our podcasts, you'd pretty much qualify for at least a bachelor's degree,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
theology, athletic training, sports science.
You just test out of the classes.
You
So
just test. If you really listened and took good notes, well, at least in our classes, I think
yeah.
you do okay.
Well, you know what's interesting about these, and the reason why I like to have my students watch is because the class is on biomechanics,
Yeah.
but yet you never want to be the world's best biomechanist because you're only going to learn this much about performance. To understand performance, you got to understand the wide spectrum of information that's out there. And we've covered nutrition, mental aspects, so mental skills, relationship skills. I mean, things far away from what we think is physiology and biomechanics. And so, that's something that I like students to watch these for is to sort of understand how you need to pull from a lot of different areas. Yes, it's good to contribute your expertise, and you come at this discussion from one perspective, I come up from another. But we've got to understand performance. You got to understand the wide range of stuff.
Well, John, it's actually, we weren't going to talk about this, which is funny because we always go down these different roads, but
Yeah.
I had a former student reach out to me yesterday, and he was writing a blog, and he's like, "Can you look at what I wrote for him?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's been out a few years, really awesome student. And his premise was that massage is probably not helping with your recovery,
Mm.
and I believe that it's not as high up on the hierarchy of recovery as it could be. So he outlined, well, the research shows it doesn't increase body temperature, research this. And so I read all this stuff and I was like, it was really good. And I'm like, but here's the other thing, you need to think about, and you need to think about, well, what about the neurologic system, like the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic, sympathetic? Where does that fall in? Because you didn't mention that, and that can be important recovery. I said, what about the immune system? You didn't think about that, because there is some evidence that it actually can upregulate immune function, right? And they said, well, what about the endocrine system? And so he had 4 systems kind of outlined and didn't have the others. And when you're talking about this multifactorial approach, we don't often think about all of the things, right? All of the pieces that go into performance. Because I just talked about maybe potentially 7 things for recovery of massage itself, right? And if you're thinking about how do I become the best triathlete or the best endurance athlete or the best basketball player or whatever the case may be, it is never cut and dry. Right? But there's a few tenements that we've talked about, right? So we talked about often consistency of training, right? We know that if you can train consistently, no matter what you do, if you can do it consistently, you're going to improve, right? That'll almost always hold true. Now, if you get into your biomechanics side, where does biomechanics fit into the consistency of training?
Right.
What do you think?
Well, it's actually in the forces and the stresses that someone's exposed to. So yeah, it's different than the injury model, but it's related to the injury model at the same time. What is a recovery modality and what's the mechanics behind it?
And maybe depending on your biomechanics, your recovery modality might need to be different.
Yeah.
Or the loads that you applied over time might change this. And so I think that these are really big questions that I find that we try and answer too succinctly. Succinctly, sorry. And when I'm reading stuff or listening to stuff, people are saying, well, this is the way it is, right? You have to do this to be a good triathlete. And in my opinion, other than consistency of training, I don't think there's a right and a wrong answer.
Yeah. No, I love this. And yes, and to extend out the multifactorial part that you mentioned, there's the gut biome.
Yep.
There's, obviously that's connected to nutrition, but the gut biome is also connected to your immune system.
Yep.
There's also the psychology part, and something we were just talking about right before we went live was the whole belief, in terms of recovery. You got to believe that your recovery is working. This sounds so, rainbow and butterfly type of thing, but you got to believe that your training program is right. And the thing I always talk about, especially with my students when they're in the class, is we can come up with a great training program. We can outline 12 weeks, 13 weeks, 15, 16, whatever it is. And we can follow all those principles you're talking about in terms of the tenets. But at the end of the day, we cannot predict how any one person is going to respond to a training program.
Never.
No. And so
unless you've worked with that same person for years, right?
Well, that's right. But that's the part that, and this is what you and I were talking about right before we went live, is the individual aspect of training. You really need to know how you respond, or if you're working with a coach, the coach needs to understand you and can't just give you a cookie cutter approach to training, because it's we're all different. And
and I think we get caught up in looking, and we've talked about this before, is looking at what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Well, this is working for this person.
That's right.
Well, and that person's successful, so I should be doing that. Or even, John, if I ask you what you're doing, and you tell me, and I'm like, oh, well, John's successful, I should do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's it can be good in the beginning until you figured out your own thing, to try different, well, this is what he does, I'm gonna try that. But then also know when to pivot. And I think that especially in the world of coaching, you see when people change coaches, they almost always improve.
Yeah, right. It's just something, yeah.
And all it is something different, and maybe it's a different belief, right? Or they've lost belief in, usually when people change coaches, they've lost belief, right? So they've lost belief in this coach, and then the new coach comes in. Well, obviously they have belief in it because they've hired the new coach,
right?
And they almost always get better, right? For at least in the short term.
Yeah.
And that's a belief thing, but obviously there's some physiology behind that too, right? Like you're stressing the body usually in a different way, and that you oftentimes will reap rewards. I find that good coaches are continually changing their training programs.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of the things we've talked about before, is like when you follow a book training plan, there's not a lot of randomness to it. I believe that randomness is what you need.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, there's not a lot of adjustment as you go along. The decision tree is pretty straight, whereas in reality, your decision tree in terms of training is changing all the time. You've got breaking off in several different branches as you go along, because you're adjusting to what's working and what's not working. And
yeah, agreed. So, all right. So as we go down this road and start discussing this, one of the things we were going to talk about tonight was the transition from off season to on season.
Yeah.
And many people are at that point right now. They're finishing. I know several people I know, they're finishing off the holidays and they're like, hey, like January 2nd, time to start hitting it hard, because 3 months from now we're going to start into triathlon racing. So John, do you kind of, you actually had a really late season, so you're probably pushing a little bit in a different way. I think most people are in that mode, at least most people that I've talked to, or a lot of people that I've talked to recently about this. So historically, what do you do to transition?
Well, pre-COVID, I was always traveling in December, and I'd have a trip to go, most of the times I'd go visit a colleague over in Japan in December. And so that sort of forced some time off, which was good. And then you come back and then you start going back into it. What I've done this year and a little bit last year was uh, just try to use December mostly just to placeholder type workouts.
Yeah.
And what my goal is by the time I'm ready to say, okay, I'm training now for an event, is my goal is to get to a point where I'm holding back, and I want to do more, but I'm not going to do more. And I think when you start getting to that sense, or when I get to that sense, then I know that I'm ready to really start, building for another race. But you got to reach that point where that excitement of saying, oh, I really no, I want to go do 2,000 yards or 2,000, 3,000, whatever it is. Right now, I'm just doing 1,000 yards, and I'm just doing it just 15 minutes. That's all this, just take it, and it's a placeholder in the workout or in the day, but even this last week, I really was like, oh, maybe I want to go a little bit longer, but I won't, because I want to have that excitement to really go after it.
That's so interesting. We hadn't talked about this, but the last 2 weeks when I've been in San Diego, I've been swimming short.
Yeah.
And I never, like, almost always swim right around 3,000. I do different things to get to 3,000, but the one day I was just not feeling it. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna 1,500. I'm going to go 1,500 easy.
Yeah.
I did 15 100s
Yeah.
on like 210,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Just easy. And then
Yeah.
I got out and I told Marie, that's my wife. No, I told her, I said, next time I'm just not feeling it, just remind me, say, hey, Ted, just go and do 1,500, do 1,500 easy.
Yeah.
Because I got out and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I could have done way more, right?
Hmm.
But I chose not to, and I felt way better for it.
Yeah.
And I think that, that 1,500, or even in your case 1,000, is a great placeholder. I'm not going to get slower
No.
by doing consistent short workouts, right?
Mm. Right.
Yeah, maybe I'm not getting like that push of endurance,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
different purpose here.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lot of it. When I think about the off season, I start to think about what's the purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Actually, every training session,
Yeah.
like, what's the purpose of this? And they don't always have to have like true structured purpose in this transition time, because at least, I don't know, I guess everything has a purpose, but sometimes the purpose can be just have fun
Yeah.
and reset a little bit still.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about this off air. You went snowshoeing.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, last week I went skateboarding.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't hear about that. Oh.
Yeah, Colleen, who probably is watching tonight, she wanted to go skateboarding down in Pacific Beach, and I hadn't skateboarded in like 30 years.
Yeah.
So they had an extra skateboard, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
And we did a half hour, and man, it was a heck of a workout. I have
Yeah.
to tell you, but it was like something different, right?
Yeah.
Something fun, and
It's multi-sport.
it's multi-sport.
Yeah.
And do I need race specificity right now?
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
No.
Right? I'm a long way away from the next triathlon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's part of it too, is doing other things. And we've talked about this before, that are still productive,
Yep.
right? Hiking and
Mm-hmm.
skateboarding and snowshoeing, and if you could, cross country skiing and
Mm-hmm.
or skiing,
Oh.
skating, whatever the case may be. I think you can still do that in your transition period to help, kind of keep you hungry.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, or to recover and get that, because a lot of times you're, last seat and that's the race of the season. You're ready to sort of hang that bike up, but you want to have that excitement that you had when you first got into triathlon, or really at the beginning of the season, because my mindset is this is a lifestyle, and yours is as well, and we just need to work in the regular exercise. We don't always need to do painful, hard workouts. It's much more just, it's part of your life. This is what we do, multi-sport.
Yeah. And I would contend, this is my thought, my theory is, as we get older, it's even more important
Mm-hmm.
to to do these things, right? And to not put a tremendous amount of stress into our system in this transition period.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always going to go with easy volume over intensity with myself and with older athletes, because I think that there's an increased risk of injury
Yeah.
and an increased risk of burnout,
Yeah.
and an increased risk of depressed testosterone and endocrine system dysfunction and all of these things that happen as we get older. Now, if you're 25, 30, 35 even, it might be a different story for you. But once again, this is where that individuality comes into the system, comes into play.
No, totally. And I like that. And I also, you know, as I'm thinking of this transition from going from season to off season, from off season to on season, something I like to do as well is look back on the year and celebrate those things that, you know, that you accomplished. And hey, not everything went right this year.
Yeah, for either of us, or for any, probably for any woman.
Hardly ever does, but you know, you can even, you know, that can be a celebration, is that you persevered or you got through something, or you had a great race, or you met some new people. And you know, I posted on Facebook recently about, you know, what were some highlights from people, and just the spectrum of posts was so neat to see. It wasn't always just a PR. In fact, very few of them were just a PR. It was more, you know, I did this, I accomplished this, I met this challenge, I met these people, and that's, you know, that's adding to our life, and that's building up and making it fun to be involved with this crazy endurance sport. So
No, exactly. It's, you know, like this is lifestyle, and at least for us and for many people in this crazy triathlon world, and triathlon is crazy if you think about it. Like, cycling's hard,
yeah,
running's hard, swimming's hard,
yeah,
just by themselves,
mm-hmm.
right? And as we talked about many times, we're trying to be moderately good at all three things. You know, and I can't tell you how many times, John, it's been through my mind, especially in the off season. Okay, I got to work on my swim. Oh, I got to work on my run. Oh, I got to work on my bike.
Great.
Right? Like, and this season, if I run well, I'm gonna have a great season.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, like, where does this come from? That, like, you know, I don't know. It's a weird thing, and it almost always invariably happens in the off season or this transition time. It's like, this is my time to focus on this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if it's right or wrong.
Well, it's what you said before. It's the individual, you know, it's what works for you, not only you, but also what works for you now, given, you know, what 2022 looked like and what 2023 is. And, you know, every off season is a little bit different. And what you may need is different this year versus, and when I say you, I mean all of us. What I need this year is different than last year and different than the year before. And so I think it is, you know, we're always trying to evolve, and you know, at the end of the day, that we're improving ourselves, not just in sport, but just in general, just you know, moving ourselves forward and growing in different ways.
So as you look forward to, I know your first major race of the year is Oceanside. So as you start to look forward to it, that's 3 months from
12, 13 weeks now. Yeah.
So when do you start, like, the formal, like, process of, like, you know, I'm building towards that race?
Well, I've already started figuring out if I can camp out somewhere. So that's already started.
There's people camped out everywhere down here.
I'm just gonna pull into, I don't know, parking lot somewhere, but the one parking lot that the transition is, that's the parking, that's a camping area in for Oceanside. So, but you know, for a 17.3, I feel easily with 12 weeks, that's plenty of time to go from an active off season to being able to have a really good race at Oceanside. And so really this last period of time, I'm just doing real simple workouts just to make sure I'm ready to just work out on not starting from ground zero. And, like you said, we did snowshoeing. I hope to go kayaking and go kayak the Colorado River. Those
Oh,
count.
wow.
And
Oh, for sure they count.
yeah, and but again, it's being active. And so you're not starting from ground zero. And then 12 weeks is plenty to get ready for a 70.3.
Let's talk about ground zero.
hmm
So do you think that you're ever at ground zero?
Uh, back in, back coming back.
In
So
2009, you were at ground zero.
yeah, I was in ground zero, 2007, 8.
Okay.
2009, I came back after a 14-year layoff and did Army in Japan in 2009. So I really started training 2008-ish, 2007-ish. And I was at ground, I was at ground zero.
Yeah, but
I
but
think we both had that.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying now is what I'm thinking of, even back then, you weren't at ground zero, even after 14 years off, right?
Mhm.
You still had an aerobic ability,
Yeah, yeah.
and I contend that you don't even need 12 weeks
Mhm.
to prepare for a 70.3 if
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
had now 14 good years of base training,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I think that we often are very afraid as athletes that, oh man, I'm starting from nothing because I took a month off, or
Yeah.
I didn't train super hard for a month. I was just, riding around on my bike and doing a little jog here and a little swim there. I contend that you maintain a tremendous amount of fitness based off of the years that you've been training.
I agree with that, and you and I are both good at advising people this way, is sometimes you're your own worst enemy when you're getting back into it.
Yeah.
And because I think you're spot on, you have that experience in training, that experience in racing, and you say, oh, now I'm going to go for a run. And I go out and do a 5 mile run.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake a lot of people will make early on. And so when I came back, started in 85 and came back in 2007-ish, my ground zero was going for a minute run,
Yeah.
going for 2 minutes. All right, now, and knowing that fitness takes time to build up and you can't get it back like that. You can get the motor skill back,
Oh, for sure.
but you can't get the fitness back in a heartbeat. And so that's the lesson that I've learned over the years, and you and I are both really, we advocate this a lot, is increments, small increments, and building up. And sometimes you're your own worst enemy, that you do get back into mind. All of a sudden starts, oh, I used to love running. I used to, I was running, 5 miles a day, and all of a sudden,
No. But I think that doesn't necessarily happen during the off season of a triathlon or of a triathlete where they take a month break,
yeah, yeah,
right? But I still think you have to be
right,
really careful because you can't
yeah,
say, at the end of last year, I was doing, 15-mile runs
yeah, right,
because I was
right.
preparing for my Ironman.
hmm
And like, okay, it's been 6 weeks. I'm going to start back up at 15 miles,
Right.
right? Start back up at a 5 mile
hmm
and build again. And, don't be, I always contend, like, you don't need to be fatiguing yourself,
hmm
especially early in the season. You should
Yeah.
probably be doing a little bit less than you can do.
Yeah.
And once again, there's nothing wrong with jumping out and doing an easy 5K or an easy 6K run, and that can be run. That's good.
Right. Right.
The stimulus and some of the research that I've been reading lately, the stimulus mostly happens with running in the first half hour.
hmm hmm
And same with swimming. The
Yeah.
stimulus happens early.
Yeah.
Because these are such skill-based and motor-based things. Now, cycling, I think, takes longer for you to get the stimulus, but even cycling, I mean, 45 minutes to an hour is what I'm reading, is you can get stimulus at that point.
hmm hmm
And just consider those wins, especially like for me, as I look at 12 weeks, that's what I'm starting to look at. It's like, okay, I've been doing a bunch of volume on the bike. Okay, but my running, I've not been able to have much volume, and I got to start small.
Yeah.
And and do. I think in this trip I've been on, I've only the longest run I've done is 5K,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and just being okay with that.
Yeah.
And but cardiovascularly, I could go 20K, 30K,
Hmm.
probably
Hmm.
cardiovascularly, but that would destroy my legs.
Yeah,
And once again, building up slowly, I think is the key.
that's right. And so you destroy legs, and then you got to take tomorrow off or the next
Yep.
day off, and that's the part that starts to accumulate in a negative way.
Yep.
And so, no, I'm 100% in line with what you're thinking and saying is, it just, you have the ability, but don't tap into that ability early on. Let it come to you, and build in that consistency. And oh, we got a comment from Max. We haven't had Max comment in a while. Welcome back, Max. He says the short, fun workouts keep you technically sound, but not accumulate fatigue. Solid topic. Yeah.
Yep. And it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. You
Mhm.
know, and know it also keeps you mentally in the game, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's mentally hard to do an hour 30,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or go to a 4 hour bike ride by yourself, or sit on Zwift even for 3 hours.
Hmm.
Those are mentally
Yeah.
hard things to do, right? And we forget that actually takes a toll on our system, maybe not physically, but psychologically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And especially, as we're this far off from a race, it's not like you have this in your mind, oh man, I'm going to crush it in 12 weeks or
Hmm.
13 weeks. You can't keep, in my, maybe some people can, but my experience, people can't keep on that edge for that long. But that's
Yeah.
the stimulus.
That's right.
So it has to be fun.
Hmm. No, and then it can start becoming a distraction to other things you need to get done in the day.
Yep.
And then that adds stress, and all of a sudden you are at a point where you're like, oh, I really got to get ready for this race, but now it becomes a condensed time. So,
Yep.
yeah. All right, so let's talk about some other things that we can do, or each of us does, as we get ready to launch into preparing for an event. I think we're always got the mindset that we're getting ready, um,
And
but
I
really,
think we've talked about this before. So this is something that's not even a training thing, but this is usually the time where I tear down my bike.
yeah, yeah, I got that written
Now,
down. Yeah.
I didn't do it this year because I built a new bike and I've only ridden on it, I think 5 times or 6 times. So it's not a time to break down my bike. But what I am going to do is I'm going to transition my bikes to tubeless.
Hmm. Oh, you're gonna do it. Okay.
Yeah, I've had 3 flats here
Yeah.
and 3 consecutive rides, and they were different wheels in different situations each time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try it, and so it's going to be this next 12 weeks is to test it out, and because this is not something I want to contend with 2 weeks before a race or whatever. So I figured this is a good opportunity for me to make that transition.
Well,
So
we should do that together because I was talking with Flow Wheels John Thorm, and
yep,
he's a big advocate of tubeless. And I said, oh, I guess I'm gonna have to take at least my training wheels and make them tubeless, see how
yep.
that goes, and then maybe make the racing wheels tubeless. We'll see.
It's really funny because I was riding with Chris Thornham, his brother,
Yep.
last Saturday, and that was the catalyst for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a flat when I was riding with him. He's like, oh man, he's like, you got to switch to tubeless. Like I never flat. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, and you can ride lower pressure. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good thing too. And so it's funny. And so I think that'll be our New Year's resolution. How about that? You and I are gonna do our New Year's resolution to try out tubeless.
We should do it.
Yeah.
All right, so other gear, I think this is just as you talk about, this is a great time to make sure that you've got all the gear that you need to get you through the season for the most part.
Yeah.
And what's nice about doing that now is you have a little bit more time in your hands. Whereas later on in the season, you're rushing, like you said, you're prepping and you don't have as much free time to spend on the gear. So check out your running shoes. Make sure, maybe buy a couple of pair of your training running shoes at this point,
Yeah.
so you've got them ready to go when they start breaking down. Your swim goggles, any clothing you need for workouts. It's a good time to get all that.
It's so funny. I didn't have that written down, but that's what I did today. I went to the Nike outlet and got a couple of
There you
new
go.
shirts and some shorts, and
Yeah.
because yeah, I think this is the time of year to do that. Is I've got time. I got I can get that stuff taken care of now.
Hmm.
Even like things like what hydration system you're going to run on the bike,
Yeah.
right? Like start thinking about that stuff now, when you have time, and test
Hmm.
it out, and spend a few weeks with it. rather, so many, not so many, you hear of people buying stuff 2 weeks before the race. Oh, I
Yeah.
got a race, I'm going to buy this hydration system, or I'm going to do this. And I don't, I don't think you need that added stress. Now I get
Mhm.
it. Like if the weather changes and it's like, oh man, it's going to be really cold, I need to buy some cold weather gear because
Yeah.
this happens to be that. But
Bomb cyclone coming through.
bomb cyclone, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that, but you have to plan it. Like I already know that for my season, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cold water swims coming up. Like
Okay.
I know I have 4 really cold weather. So I'm doing Oceanside, Morro Bay, Alcatraz, and Finland.
Yeah.
So not one of those will probably be above 60 degrees.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So what do I need? Right. Well,
Mhm.
I need the earwax stuff. So I've already
Mhm.
ordered that because I know I'm going to need, I know I'm going to need that. Okay. Check, make sure. Okay. What's the shape of my neoprene cap?
Yeah.
Right? I've got a thermal wetsuit already. Do I need booties? Now's the time to buy those, not, stressing about it right before.
Mhm.
And even thinking about already, I'm thinking about what am I going to wear on the bike
Mhm.
in these 4 cold races. And in cold races in the past, what have I worn? And I always keep notes of what I've done. Okay, do I still have that? Is it still in good shape? Like
Mhm.
those are things that ultimately you could be doing right now.
Mhm.
Most people that are serious triathletes have their season, at least their major races planned out.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
no, and making those plans is you can make it fun, in
oh,
terms
for
of
sure.
thinking, because these places that you're going to, Alcatraz, Finland, I mean, this is exciting.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I wrote down is this is the time to make those travel plans on top of that.
Oh yeah.
Figure out, how you're getting, are you flying Southwest? Are you
Exactly.
what's going to happen during that period of time? But and things to see. I was talking with a pro triathlete a few weeks back, an ex-pro, retired at this point, and talking about traveling and racing. I said, I just love it because we go places we wouldn't normally go, and then we try to find something unique about that area to do. And he said, yeah, when I was a pro, I went to all these places, but I didn't get a chance to really enjoy them. And I'm like, well, I get it. That's your job at that point. But we have the ability to go and race at a high level, but still have some fun and enjoy the area. And so making those travel plans, like I was kidding around about camping at Oceanside. I've actually been looking at that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, where could maybe I camp along the way, and that just is an excitement for me is trying to figure out some type of logistic plan like that. To not distract from the race, but still get to that start line with that excitement that, oh, this was just a fun adventure.
Yeah. I agree. What else do you got?
I actually wrote down transitions.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot.
We have. It is good to start thinking about transitions or, and maybe even practicing some. If this is especially someone who's in the first year, certainly this is a time to figure out transitioning from each sport to the next one. So,
It was really interesting when we had the conversation with Justin Reale, and he was
mhm,
talking about his transition in T1 and how he didn't get on the group,
yeah,
and was his transition like 90 seconds or something like that in a
yeah,
70.3. And I've been really thinking about that ever since that conversation, and thinking about like how many races 1 or 2 minutes made difference in placement.
hmm,
And it's quite often I don't have great T1s,
mm,
and I've written down some notes of like why and what I think and things that I can do to be faster in my T1. And I've got to work on like getting my wetsuit off faster,
hmm,
right? Well, is this a time to do that? Do I shower with my wetsuit on and open up the shower? How fast can I create a puddle on the ground? I mean, I know that that's an issue for me,
hmm,
and I've got to get better. And then I was like thinking, well, one of the issues is my shoulder flexibility is not good. So I'm going to
hmm,
work on the shoulder flexibility so I can actually grab.
yeah,
And that doesn't happen overnight,
right,
right? And increasing my shoulder flexibility hopefully will help my swimming as well. And then I've dealt with, and we've talked about it a lot. I've dealt with cramping a lot, especially in
yeah,
T1. and in particular, hamstring cramping and quadricep cramping. So I'm doing things this off season to mitigate that. I'm lifting more weights. I'm doing more things that I think are going to help make me more resilient. I think I talked to you about, I've been jumping rope a ton.
Yeah, right.
And but progressively, so I say a ton, it's been a progressive thing for the last like 3 months. I've been building up my jump rope. I'm gonna brag here. I'm up to 11 minutes of jumping rope, and I can do.
That's awesome.
I did 1,500 jumps in 11 minutes.
Wow.
So, by the way, your Garmin watch can keep track of this. I'm sure your Apple Watch can as well. But I started out doing like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off.
Yep.
Like I had a plan, and I'm building it up, and I'm thinking that this is going to help me from calf cramping. Like at least that's the theory I have. So I'm trying to do things to, thinking about transitioning and getting that T1 faster. My T2s are usually really fast. It's the T1.
I like it. I like that a lot. And I don't know what it was that you said, but it spurred me on to think that I need to go back, and I haven't done this, and really think about the mistakes I made this past year and then fix those mistakes or weaknesses. And that's a good exercise to go through. But yeah, that for what you were talking about there, just sort of, triggered that thought in my mind that, I talked about, celebrating 2022, but you're also going to go back and say, wait, where did I mess up?
Yeah. What could I have done better? I don't like to say mess up, right?
Yeah.
What could I do better?
Yeah.
Both of us at Oceanside last year had sock issues.
Oh, that's right.
Right? And so, that's the thing. Like, I can't make that mistake again. Like, I can't leave my socks. If I want to wear socks, I can't leave them in my backpack.
Yeah.
Like, they need to be out, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I was going to do before the next race is actually set up a transition area and then take a photo of it and then make that my screen.
Oh, yeah.
My screensaver.
I like
So
that.
every time I turn my computer on, I see that.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got my gels, I've got this, I've got that, I got that, and that's how it's set up. And that's gonna be in my mental image, right?
I like it.
And it's just like little things like that, that if that saves me 20 seconds,
Yeah.
and it costs nothing.
Well, this goes back to where we talked in the beginning, this belief idea. And I think what that does is gives you this confident mindset that this is already set and this is already known. And so I don't need to mess with this much. Where, if it's new every time, that's where mistakes are likely going to happen.
Yeah. And when we talked about our transition mistakes before on this, and you and I, if we added it together, have so many transition mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's and I'm guilty of not practicing it enough, obviously.
Yeah.
And not practicing every situation. I can still remember it was 2 years ago, I ran out of T1 with my swim shorts on, like my neoprene swim shorts.
Yeah.
I was literally mounting the bike, and I'm like, oh geez, because I'd never done a race in just the neoprene shorts before, right? So I wasn't even thinking, hey, you gotta take, but if I had my wetsuit, I know I'd have taken it off.
Oh, that's great. Well, I won a race and I got DQ'd. And I got DQ'd because I blasted through transition because I knew I had to catch the guy in front of me was faster in the swim, and this was back in the 80s. And I knew I had to catch him, and so I blasted through transition. I never put my helmet on.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know I didn't have my helmet on until the race director pulls up alongside me during the race.
Hey.
He points to my head or to his head like this. And I'm like, oh, where's my helmet?
So you're like, mercy, please. Yes.
But to my defense, those were the days where we didn't train with helmets either. So really only raced with helmets. So,
see, because nowadays it would just be like, this is the weirdest feeling in the world.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, funny.
Get on your bike without a helmet. Yeah.
All right. So I've got another one here, and this is important, and I mentioned it already, but it's so important, is relationships. And I know a lot of people take the off season and say, okay, now I'm going to invest more time in family or this or whatever. And really, we have to find a way to invest in relationships throughout the whole season. We can't shut relationships down for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and say, well, now I'm going to focus on training. No, that is going to be a distraction ultimately to your performance in a race. And training and getting ready for a race, that should be additive to a relationship. It should be bringing something to it. And so I think that's really important to take a step back and think, how are you going to approach training and bring something to a relationship versus having that relationship sort of be put on hold.
No, I agree. And that's not an easy thing to do, you know,
No, it's not.
and it's not just a relationship with one person, like your significant other. It's with potentially your whole family or your friends,
Hmm.
you know,
Friends, yeah, whatever it is, yeah, yeah.
whatever it is, or your relationship, it's not really a relationship, but your relationship with work.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
We should bring on another, well, maybe we'll go back and bring Kat back on to talk
Yeah.
about relationships. That was really good. All right, so I've got one more on my list, and I just did this a few days ago, is I went through my calendar and I put in my entries for everything, not only race-wise, but work-wise, trips that Laura and I have talked we're going to do, or birthdays, what have you, all the different obligations I'm going to have. I put those all in my calendar, and that gives me a little bit of peace of mind in terms of knowing at least I can look at my calendar and say, oh, this is what's coming up this next week or this next month or what have you.
Because it does jump up, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
things jump up, and it's funny that because just today my wife was like, okay, I need your race schedule for this year, and I know need
Hmm.
when we're traveling to these places, or if
Yeah,
I'm traveling, I need to know.
yeah,
And I'm like, okay, this is a good time to do this,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I open up my calendar, she opened up her calendar, because I already have all that stuff in my calendar, but she didn't.
Mhm. No, right.
And so now we're synced up, and it just decreases the stress, because
Mhm.
sometimes you think that, like, at least for me, I think that, well, I told you I signed up for this race, how do you not know? Like,
Yeah, right.
why should she care what the
Yeah,
date
right.
is, right? Like, oh yeah, you're doing Oceanside, okay, well,
Yeah.
or you're whatever race you're doing, you just make the assumption that everyone else in your life knows, because you
Yeah.
told them you did the race, or you signed up for the race, that they know. Oh, and we're traveling on Thursday and we're coming back on
Yeah.
Sunday. Like,
Hmm.
they don't know,
No.
and it's not on their calendars or on their radar, and they're not
Mm.
training for it, and they're not,
No.
yeah, yeah. So,
Mm.
so
Logistics.
yeah, logistics. All right, you have one more?
No, that was it.
Okay. So for me, I'm actually starting to think about Oceanside already, and maybe because I'm here,
Yep.
I'm starting to think about it. I'm starting to even develop like planning
Mhm.
um, around the race itself, and even tactical
Yep.
planning, especially that bike course. In my opinion, you have to be a tactician on that bike
Mhm.
course. And I know we talked about that bike course before. Um, but I've really been starting to think about, like, where do I need to ride hard, and what do I need to do to prepare
Yep.
to be able to go up those 3 climbs, but also be able to finish that last 10 miles into the wind.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to even, think about that in my training. So when I've been here, a lot of the rides I've been doing have been finishing coming into a headwind.
Okay.
And it's more just a mental thing, right? Like, okay,
Mhm.
I know at that race, it's going to be the last 10 miles into a headwind.
Yep.
And I want to go hard in my training, even at
Mhm.
this time of year. And that's super hard, but I'm like 70.3 hard
Yep.
into that headwind. And it's more of like just a mental thing than
Mhm.
anything. But I'm already starting to plan for that, even though it's 12 weeks away. So
Right.
my head is wrapped around it. And even when I get back to Las Vegas and I'm training, I'm going to try and finish my rides going into a headwind.
Yep.
And it's something, it's something really small. I don't have to do it. But for me, I think that helps. And
Mhm.
even building my bike courses that I'm going to train on. Okay, well, I know that course has got an hour of relatively flat, and then you have the 3 climbs. Like, how can I mimic that?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like, even while I'm here, I've been doing courses that are sort of like that.
Yep.
And so I'm already thinking about it,
Oh, I love it.
and
Well,
starting to plan for it.
and I do the same thing. And so
There you go.
my screensaver or my desktop is already the maps of Oceanside.
Yep.
And so anytime I turn on my computer, I see the maps of Oceanside. And
Yep.
so for that same reason, because you start thinking about, okay, well, this is what the swim's going to be. You remember what, the start of the swim is like with the break waves breaking in. what happens when you get out, and you start envisioning the different parts of the course. So no, I'm right there with you. I love that, and that's sort of the fun part of racing too, is you become familiar with an event, and you can start to, on the run. I remember the different parts of the run that even though it's not a real eventful run,
Oh, I love that run. It's like,
you've got those long stretches that are just straight, and they do have some hills, but of just thinking through those, and it's sort of
yep.
just sort of neat.
So just fun fact for you, the last mile of that course on the run, they repaved it.
Oh, did they? Okay.
And it is gorgeous, because I don't know if you remember that last mile,
Yeah,
the chunky, all sorts of different surfaces,
yeah,
a
yeah.
mix of concrete and asphalt. It's
Hmm.
all asphalt now too.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So yeah, I was really excited when I rode my bike on it, and because you go down that section twice,
Yeah,
actually 4 times, and you go out and back, out and back.
yeah.
And I always struggled with the footing there. So that was so there you go. Put that in your mental Rolodex, that
I like it. I
you don't have
like
to
it.
run that last mile on poor pavement.
Yeah, yeah.
But even still, like the surf, right? Like we've been going on beach walks pretty much every day, and
Hmm.
I've been getting in the water just up to my
Oh,
ankles.
good. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
cold, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And but I've been like looking at the surf a lot, because they've had high surf warnings almost every day we're here.
Okay.
And I've been looking at like the timing of the surf.
Mm. Hmm.
And there's like sets, right? Like you'll have like 8 waves in a row,
Yeah.
and then it kind of mellows down. I'm like, can I time this at Oceanside? No, but seriously, like,
Yeah.
because you're sitting in that corral and they're like pushing people forward. Could I be watching?
Right.
Right. Okay, there was just 5 big waves in a row. Okay, now I want to get in.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Right. Instead of just like, the lemming, just like, okay, well, here we
Yeah.
go.
It's my
And
turn.
my turn, and you get in and you're like, holy cow, like I
Yeah.
picked the literally worst time I could ever pick to go in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can time it. I don't know if I can do it, but it's something I'm actually going to try this year.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. Ocean swims have that, element to it that, tide is coming in or out. Those are good things to think about. I'm trying to think which race it was where the tide was going to be different uh, within a half hour, and which way,
Oh,
how much it was going to be pulling you. And so there's an advantage to being, early in the group or late in the group. Yeah, I was just thinking, even when I did New York City and swimming in the Hudson, that was one of the issues. Is you actually swim upstream, but it's tide aided, but the tide changes with time, so
yeah.
it can be stronger in certain parts of the swim versus others. So yeah, I think that's smart, to think strategically.
I haven't done it yet, but I did it last year around this time. I actually looked at the tide schedule for
Yeah,
Oceanside as well,
yeah, yeah.
because it's actually big when
Is
you're
it?
going to a harbor.
Okay.
Because if the tide's going out, it's
Yeah.
pushing the water out. If the tide's going in, it's pushing the water in. So
Yeah.
last year it pushed the water in. So we
Mm.
actually it was going from it's going from low tide
Mm-hmm.
to high. It was going from low to high, I think. And so then the times should be a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Right? But if the tide is going out, that swim could be significantly longer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if you think, well, I'm a 32 swimmer and you swim a 38, you come out and you look at your watch, oh man,
Yeah.
I got
Days
crushed
done.
today.
Yeah.
And you get all negative, not
Yeah.
recognizing that it actually
Yeah.
was against the tide.
Yeah.
Because, especially at Oceanside, it's only one direction you're going in that harbor. You're not coming
Yeah.
out.
Great.
So that can play a role. And once again, this is getting to some nitty gritty stuff of
Mm-hmm.
like really maybe it's over analyzing it.
Yeah.
But one we've talked about before is the variables, right? Can
Mm-hmm.
you reduce the amount of variables?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To me, that's an easy one. I can look it up right now and tell you
Yeah.
what at 6:30 in the morning or 7 in the morning, which way the tide's going there.
Yeah. Right. 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 Mm. No, that's good. And that's what I enjoy about triathlon specifically is you get to look at each segment. What are you doing on the swim? What's happening on the bike? And what's happening on the run? And so I think that's why I'm always drawn to staying in this sport. So
I think that's for me too. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about what are you most excited for in triathlon this year coming up?
I am really interested. 2022 was a challenging year for a lot of people and was for me as well. And I know when I did Indian Wells, my goal was just to be able to feel like I could push the pace again and feel confident that I could race. And I did that. And I was really, really excited, regardless of place or time or anything. I just had that confidence that I could try, and that was good. And so what I'm looking forward in 2023 is just building on that. And I'm looking to really start off at Oceanside with that sense that I feel like I can race,
Yeah.
and that's the part that I'm excited about. And I'm already excited about trying to get to the start line in the best shape I can, and just to have that fun of being on that red line, and really finding that pace that you can sustain, but you also know it could be dangerous. So
Yeah, but that's the fun part, right?
yeah,
Is being on that, well, that kind of the razor's edge.
yeah, yeah.
Just don't go too far over it.
No, that's right. And I know we're on different sides of the coin on this, but sometimes I rely on the magic to happen. The only problem is with relying on magic is, boy, you sure are sore afterwards. So,
That's true. That's true.
how
No,
about you?
um, I am really honestly excited to have a healthy year.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you, I really struggled last year. I had shingles twice, COVID,
Hmm.
bone spur in my hip, hamstring
Hmm.
strain, and I just really want. I'm believing that I'm going to have a good,
Yeah,
healthy season.
yeah,
Um, you know, I was looking at my year-end stats, and I was very depressed, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Like
Hmm.
I ran so little this year,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I love running. Like
Yeah,
I really enjoy running, and I couldn't run this year, and this year I'm gonna run, and so I'm excited about that. I'm also really excited. I've really taken a step back on my swimming, and I talked about doing less, but really focusing on a newer technique where I'm
right.
really working on my catch, and it seems like it's I'm getting a lot more in my catch, and so I'm really looking to develop my catch in swimming. I'm super excited
Yeah.
for that. I feel like I've been really stagnant in my swimming for the last decade, but I think I was doing a lot of junk miles, and I didn't
Hmm.
say junk miles, but I wasn't getting any better.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
I was doing a lot of yards. Well, maybe not a lot of yards compared to most or to some, um, but I wasn't really improving my technique very much. And I need to go slower to go faster later. Right?
Hmm.
And so I'm excited about that.
I love it. Well, I want to go back to your running issue, and I'm really glad you brought this up about the year-end stats, because I know what you mean, and that you look at those numbers, and we both have looked at those numbers for ourselves, and so there's a sense of pride in terms of how much stat we can build up, and I think we both enjoy that part of training consistently around. But what's amazing for you is the stats that you were able to get in the context of what the year was. I know you said you weren't able to run as much, but how many people would have gotten shingles and run anywhere close to what you did? And I think that's what is amazing is we sometimes need to just bottle up the context of the year and look at it and say, you know what, that was really darn good
Oh,
that you persevered. And
I'm so with you on this, John. Like,
yeah.
so I know these are little stupid things, but like, okay, so I still was all world athlete gold in
Yeah.
Ironman, right?
Hmm.
And I only got it by like two positions,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Whereas historically it hasn't been an issue, but I'm like, given the year I had,
yeah, yeah. It's amazing.
amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Still an all-American,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, holy cow, like after the year I had to have that happen,
Yeah, that's right.
and like I'm like, wow, like this is
Hmm.
like on a really terrible year to still like be in that
Yeah.
rarefied air.
Hmm.
I'm really super proud of
Hmm.
that and the resiliency that I've shown. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm so proud of the year I
Yeah,
had.
right, right.
Like with what I dealt with this year, like I honestly, I think that every race that I did do, I performed as well as I could do on that day.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Mm-hmm.
believe that.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm super proud of that. And I don't get me wrong, like I'm disappointed because I didn't ride as many miles and run
I
as many
know.
miles as this was like my lowest year since I
Yeah,
think second
yeah.
year.
Great,
Strava, you can get all this stuff.
great.
But the fact that I could have that little volume and that little intensity
Great.
and still do that, like don't get me wrong, I am super, super
Mm-hmm.
proud of that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's still you look at it, you're like, oh my gosh.
I know, I know, I know. It's hard, and I think this is the love-hate relationship with the technology
Yeah.
is it's great, but it can be a distraction at the same time. But it is that balance that you got to find. And I know that you're proud of what you've done this year, and but I think it is a good thing for people to hear is that you got to put this in a context. What you were able to accomplish, what anyone was
Anyone.
able to accomplish, and really, look back on, because it has to be positive for us at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because we're not professional triathletes. It's
No, like we've talked about this many times, is like is this lifestyle is a choice for
yeah,
us.
yeah,
We're investing a lot in it. And that's
mhm,
sometimes why the heartache comes, right? Is
yeah,
because we do invest a lot of time and energy and effort into it. But and I'll say this to anyone that's listening, that if you do a triathlon this year,
mm-hmm,
rarefied
yeah,
air.
yeah, that's
Like
right.
the amount of people that can actually
Mhm,
at any given day go do a triathlon is very, very,
yeah,
very small.
yeah. No, it is. And what's fun is, that excitement of doing one. And it's funny, I was talking with a colleague about triathlon, and she was telling me a story that she did a triathlon and it was a super sprint. And she was like, just, she wasn't doing it as a competitive athlete, but it was like a 200-yard swim, 5-mile bike, and a mile run. And she's like, I had such a thrill when I finished that. And I'm like, that's the feeling that, we all need to have, is that thrill. It doesn't matter what the race distance is, or where the race is, but just that fun of racing, that you get a thrill out of it.
Well, it's sometimes it's the fun of racing. It's the fun of like doing something to a level you didn't think you could do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
And I think that's like, I don't know. To me, that's why I'm doing this. It's
Yeah,
like, it's not that I have doubt in
yeah,
myself.
but yeah.
It's that this is hard. And I feel like every time I finish a race, whether it's a 5K
Hmm.
um, or it's an Ironman, like I feel this sense of like, that was hard,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
The one last thing I want to talk about
Yeah.
is changing gears.
Hmm.
Um, why is it when you race, it feels like it's the hardest thing ever.
Yeah, right.
And the minute you finish, like, oh, I could have went harder.
I know. I know.
We talked about this with the VO2 max testing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where everyone gets off and 2 minutes later, oh man, I could have went one more.
yeah.
Why is it that it's always feels like, oh my gosh, this is so hard? Like, so I did the 5K there was
Mhm.
a 5K here on Wednesday. It was for the Holiday Bowl.
Right.
And I was running and I had that K4. I'm like, oh my, I can't go any harder. Like
Hmm.
kind of going back and forth with the guy who I thought was in my age group. And I'm like, and then as soon as I finished, he beat me by 9 seconds.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
I could have went 9 seconds
9
faster.
seconds is, yeah, that's
And I
50
was racing
meters.
with him, and at the 4th kilometer, I just didn't have it.
Yeah,
Like, he went
yeah.
a little bit faster,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, and then he
Mhm.
get to a point, and I can still remember in my mind because it's only
Yeah,
a few days ago.
yeah.
He started pulling away from me, and I'm like, well,
You
that's
can't
it.
do
I
it.
don't have it. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that tells me I can't go faster?
Yeah, the limits to performance. Yeah, if we knew the answer to that, that'd be amazing. Now, I might as well throw in a little bit of research here as we wrap up. I've done a lot of work in the fatigue area.
Yeah.
And fatigue, which is really what you're talking about, is this F word, because it's so hard to actually define what fatigue truly is. And
Yep.
fatigue is different than exhaustion. Exhaustion is you can't go any further. Fatigue, we typically end up putting on some operational definition, like it's the reduced ability to generate muscle force. That doesn't hold up, but that and doesn't hold up in the situation that you're even talking about. But I actually define fatigue from the psychology world. Howard Bartlett used this, where fatigue is a perception of how much more you can do. And so in the race situation, the perception, whatever that's built on, muscle pain, whatever it is, that perception is the limiter. And then
Right.
you finish, and all of a sudden that perception's gone. And you're
Yeah, I
like, wait a
know.
second.
Wait a second. Why did I not run 9 seconds faster? Right?
Yeah,
Like it's so weird.
yeah,
But I do think that the more you race, the more you
yeah.
get rid of that.
I think you're right. But I had that happen to me at a race this year too, where I just could not hold the pace of the other competitor, and he ended up beating me. And I always took pride in, well, no, I can, if I see the finish line, I can beat you. But that day, I couldn't see the finish line. But
And maybe that was this case with me because it was kind of a curvy
yeah, yeah,
race.
yeah.
I couldn't see the finish line either.
Uh,
But
but
yeah,
that's the fun of it. I mean, that's
but
what.
that's what I'm getting at. That's the fun.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
finish and I'm like, I'm analyzing already, like
yeah, yeah,
this silly little 5K. I'm
yeah.
analyzing, well, like, why is it that happened? And what can I do next time to make
I
that?
know, but the flip side is maybe that what was happening then actually got you to the time that
Yep,
you wouldn't have gotten to without that happening. And,
exactly.
and so you were still pushing the limit. Now, how do you raise that ceiling the next time?
Yeah. Well, because I went back and looked at my heart rate data,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, oh man, I was pretty dang close to max.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah. Right,
maybe I actually
right,
couldn't go any
right.
faster. Maybe that was actually my physiologic limit at 16 minutes in, when my heart rate is 2 or 3 beats below my maximum heart rate.
Yeah.
Maybe that actually is my limit, and that's good. That's okay too, right?
Well, you
But then,
did.
but I didn't die, and that's
No,
the
that's
whole
right.
point,
That's right.
right? Like, and I'm not gonna die, and I gotta tell myself, like, I tell myself that, by the way, when I'm running sometimes.
Oh, yeah. No,
Right?
that's good.
You're not gonna die. Yeah,
Yeah.
this sucks.
Right.
This is hard, but you're not gonna die.
No, I love
Well,
it.
not today. Not doing this.
Well, and really what you need to do is go back and look at, don't get the 4% shoes, get the 4.01% shoes.
Oh, and then just so you know, I didn't wear my race shoes.
Oh, there you go. There you
And so I didn't
go.
have the 4% better. And I didn't wear the race shoes because it was raining. And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the ones I brought were brand new and
Oh,
white.
you don't want to do that.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not gonna get my race shoes dirty
Yeah.
for this. So
Oh, I love it.
that's all it was.
All right. Well, I'm energized. I'm ready to go train. But
Okay.
I got to finish my ice cream first.
You
So.
eat your ice cream. I think Marie just went out to pick up some pizza. So
All right.
we're doing great. Hey, have a happy new year.
Yeah, you too. Safe.
Yeah, we're gonna do a polar plunge on New Year's morning out in the ocean.
Oh, nice. All right.
So
We'll
I'm
do
gonna
our polar plunge here in Las Vegas. I think we're going to do it in March.
do it in March.
Yeah.
Yeah, out at Lake Mead.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think y'all should go to Lake Mead on New Year's morning and just go for a quick 500.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Maybe.
No wetsuits.
Yeah. No wetsuit. That's right. I don't even know what the temperature is down there right now. So
I bet it's pretty chilly.
it's probably pretty chilly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, John. Well, thanks. Hey, have
Hey,
a
good
happy New
talking.
Year. Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.